Hey guys, what's going on here? It's MGBL back at you with another one. So today is going to be a little bit of a different topic. I want to go over the hard drive type. So this is an SSD and this is a hard disk drive. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because I know it might be common knowledge that every modern computer, MacBooks, some Windows PCs, they have all solid state drives, which is what an SSD is, but I want to tell you a little bit more about it and what it actually can do for your computer rather than you just reading specs, because not everyone understands technology and that's just how it is, right? We all have our strengths and weaknesses, and the purpose of this video is to explain to you what the difference is with these two drives. And I'll tell you a funny story about this one over here because I thought this was an SSD, but it's a hard disk drive, but we'll go over it. And I'll just throw out there, anyone using a backup or MacBook, you're going to need one of these connectors. It's on Apple. It's a dongle. You know, the famous old dongle Apple gives you because they take out ports. But anyways, if you have a MacBook, I highly recommend you get a dongle so you can back up your data successfully and, you know, not lose anything precious, because I'm sure you have a lot of memories and important personal stuff on your laptop, right? So yeah, just get a dongle like this. This is USB-C to USB 3, you can tell. So when you see the blue, it's USB 3.0, if you guys didn't know. But yeah, that's basically what I've been using to back up my MacBook. But a little history on what a hard disk drive, HDD, versus a solid state drive, SSD. So these became modern in about the 1980s. I say 90, like when you had all those big computers, those big screens, CRT monitors. I'm sure if you guys remember back 30 years ago, all these computers had big, bulky stuff, and this was about 5.5. It measured 5.5 inches to this to go inside the slot. Now, back then, you know, technology was moving rapidly. Like every year was something new, especially when Steve Jobs went back to Apple in 1997. He made the iMac and all that. But after 90s, every year was progressing. We got cell phones, like the first product of its generation, and then slowly evolved after that. So that's when this was in its prime time. And then fast forward to the 2000s, right? Let's say around 2005, 2006. Then SSD started getting introduced. It's more of a modern technology, right? And SSD is basically flash storage compared to a spinning disk on this, which is a hard disk drive. So essentially it's faster and it loads your data and stuff. So obviously we know that this is obviously better, right? So I got this off Amazon today because I'm going to start using this to back up my data and stuff. And as you can see, it's USB-C and it's tiny. Look at the size comparison. And there's even smaller ones in this. Just look at the size difference. Check that out. So over here, you can see the size difference for an SSD. Look at that. So 1 terabyte, 1 terabyte. Like, look how far we've come in terms of hard drives. And this brand, Crucial, is really reliable. I put one of their hard drives in my MacBook Pro. Link in description to see my upgrade. I have a whole series on it. I'm upgrading. But yeah, it's a really good brand, and I like their quality of products and stuff. So, I mean, hey, more power to me, right? But basically what's inside of this is like a soldered on memory for SSD. So if you get a MacBook, for instance, that has an SSD, it's soldered on the motherboard so you can't remove them. With an external USB-C SSD, you can take it anywhere with you and use it for anything. iPads, MacBooks, even your PS5, anything modern. This will work pretty good. So, but there's also a few things that you need to know about an SSD. So what I'm saying is, like, there's obviously some drawbacks here, right? So the drawback with a hard disk drive, it's spinning all the time. It's eventually going to fail. It's going to be writing so much times that the components inside are going to wear out. And, you know, you're not going to have a reliable hard drive. These are pegged for like 5 to 10 years, which is more than enough time, right? I'm sure you can get another hard drive within a few years and then back up your data and stuff. So, I mean, essentially, it is bulletproof. These are tried and true. This is what was in the original computers back then. So it is a trusted technology. It's stable, and stuff. Now, when you turn to SSDs, this is a bit different. Not a lot of people know. Yes, this is faster. Yes, it can write over 3 gigabytes of data on the computer. You can have a application running to test the speed of it, but you got to understand something. This is also rated to fail too eventually. Maybe less than this, because it's always writing, right? I mean, if you get a quality brand, don't get me wrong, you can make this last. And I mean, honestly, for a hard drive, will last the lifespan of a computer. I mean, we're in such an age right now where everything's pretty much reliable. Any new Windows PC, MacBook, even your phone, anything, it's all SSD storage. But you gotta understand one thing, that after time, it's gonna, right, it's gonna get slower. You're gonna put more data on it, and it's essentially how it is. So in other terms, if you get a MacBook and your SSD fails, you're pretty much screwed, because you can't replace it unless you know somebody who can solder on a new one. But who wants to pay for that? You might as well get a new machine. But yeah, everything today is SSD. You will not find a spinning disk drive. And I want to debunk a rumor that apparently a hard disk is cheaper than this. I paid the same price for these. These are 1 terabyte each. So I want to debunk that rumor. Maybe I didn't look enough, but when I bought this, it was 80 bucks. I just bought this recently. It was 90 bucks. So 10 bucks difference, big deal. But these obviously came down in price because it's modern and it's what everyone uses in their computers now. But I'm going to tell you a funny story. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but when I got this last year, I thought this was an SSD, right? So to my knowledge, I took another look, and look at that. HDD. So this is a spinning disk drive. Now, I bought this thinking it's an SSD, and I didn't even really look at it because I barely use this thing over here. It's like, what the heck, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, damn, I paid 80 bucks for a hard disk drive when I could have bought this for another 10 bucks, an SSD, which is faster. You know what I mean? So I want to advise you guys, when you're looking for hard drives and stuff, always do your research and make sure it's an SSD. It's rated for what it's for. Make sure it's a reliable company. Don't just buy it because whatever, right? Like Seagate's a good company. When I used to build computers back in 2010, 2011, I used all these Seagate. They're really reliable, tried and tested. It's one of the best brands out there, really reliable. I've never had problems with this, but I want to run an SSD because I want to write faster, because this literally takes about half an hour to write all my data. I guarantee you this will take about 10 minutes, not even, because it's faster, right? But yeah, I gotta clean this out after I'm done this video, and then I gotta start the time machine on this one. It's a bunch of stuff, right? I just like the fact that I have USB-C because I have Thunderbolt 4 on my MacBook Pro M1, so it would work phenomenally. But yeah, and another interesting factor about this is, now you see all those models, right? You see M1, M2, M3, you see Apple Silicon, right? And you see the fact that they all have SSDs. And you're probably thinking to yourself, seeing Apple's ridiculous pricing, 8 gigabytes of RAM. And in today's standards, 8 gigabytes of RAM and a 256 SSD is pathetic. I'm going to say it right now. How can you survive off a 256 SSD? Like, I don't understand. So what people do is they buy the base model, M1, 8 gigabyte 256, and then they buy an external SSD. But what you could do, and what you should know, is if you have an Apple Silicon and you have that setup, your RAM's going to fill up pretty quickly. Random access memory, if you don't know what it is, it runs all your applications, makes you load programs faster and everything. So when your RAM runs out on your computer, where do you think it gets its memory from? You guessed it, an SSD. It's called memory swap. Not a lot of people know that. So you're degrading the life of your SSD even more, because with such puny RAM, and if you're doing demanding applications on your laptop, it's gonna write double on here. So you're gonna basically double the wear and tear on your hard disk drive. Your SSD. So I just want to warn you guys, be careful when you're selecting base models. Unless you're gonna run an SSD externally, I do not recommend you get a 256 SSD with 8 gigabytes of RAM. Okay, now I have an M1 I just bought recently. It's got 8 gigs of RAM, but 512 SSD. But I barely use that laptop. That's more of my on the go. I have my permanent laptop here. This thing's running 32 gigabytes. This thing can last me 10 years. It's a really good laptop. But I just want to warn you guys, when you're doing your configurations on Apple or Windows, just make sure you understand what the SSD is doing behind the scenes. I'm just trying to save you some grief in the end, right? I want to make your machines last longer than what you want, right? If you spend $2-3 grand, you can make it last. But if you're going to keep memory swapping on this, it's going to wear and tear the SSD, and it's not good for it. The SSD will wear faster than a normal disk drive. And yeah, it's crazy, but I just wanted to tell you guys that, you know, be careful of what you do and the configurations you do for any laptop, for any model, for anything. It applies to phones, it applies to everything you can imagine. There's memory swap. It will wear and tear the SSD. So if you're in it for the long term, try to get as much RAM as you can. If you're going to keep it 2-3 years, you're golden. There's nothing to worry about. This is really reliable. But I'm just saying, be careful when memory swap is happening on an SSD, because you're wearing it out faster than you realize. But yeah, I wanted to go over that. So this is kind of like information. It's a bit different than what I usually do. I'm usually unboxing tech and stuff, but I want to give you guys some info on what these are and what you can do with them and the possibilities of them. Because believe it or not a lot of people know what an SSD or even a hard disk drive is. Believe it, some people exist today. I know we're in a modern age, and Gen Z, millennials, they'll know what computers is, but they don't know the specifics of a computer. It's just, they're probably got different you know, abilities and gifts. Maybe they're good in architecture or whatever. Maybe tech's not up their alley. But I kind of want to make this for the people so you guys have an understanding of the hard drives and what you're doing when you're choosing a configuration. So that will conclude my video, and just chilling out in the new year right now. I'm trying to get things going, but yeah, stay tuned. I'm gonna be uploading another video soon, but thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day. Okay, peace.